Hey guys, someone asked me to analyze Steve Irwin's chart. So I did two other videos analyzing charts. One was Paris Hilton's chart, the other one was Drew Barrymore's chart. If you haven't seen those, check them out. And this is going to be me analyzing Steve Irwin's chart. Hey guys, so this is the chart for Steve Irwin. So I'm going to start by looking at the sun and the moon. So for Steve, he's actually a Pisces sun, and you can see here that the Pisces sun is in the third house, conjunct with Jupiter, and that gives a person, when you have Sun and Jupiter conjunct like that, it gives the person a very big personality. And obviously Steve Irwin was a very big personality. The way he expressed his personality was, very over the top. And yeah, so that's what Jupiter does. Jupiter expands, what it touches, so it expands the core personality. That's what the sun represents in Pisces. And with Pisces, you can see that he was very, well, in the third house too, very chatty, very talkative sort of person, very self-expressive, which is also something that Jupiter relates to. Is, anyone that has strong Sagittarius energy or Jupiter in their, in their chart, their personality, they are someone who's very, very expressive, very talkative, very open, very, with the Pisces energy, very in the flow of life. He's not someone that's repressed or held back or doesn't express himself. So very communicative person. The third house, communication house and ideas house. Someone that moves around a lot. He was very restless physically. He was always moving. He was always on the go. So even when he would be in an interview, he seemed very restless, like, someone that had kind of a restless disposition. And that is definitely the influence of the third house, which is a Gemini house, and the Jupiter conjunct the sun, which expands the core personality, brings about a restlessness, someone who likes to have variety in their work and in their daily life, someone who really can't sit still as well. So and it's interesting because I remember his wife Terry talking about how he couldn't actually sleep very well at night, or he would sleep but he would get up super early in the morning. Like every morning he'd get up at like 4 or 5 a.m. and he just was raring to go. Like he felt like he had something to achieve and something to do, which is, it's a beautiful thing when you feel that way about life. And that's that buoyancy that Jupiter brings, and that intense optimism when it's conjunct the sun like that. So that's a big feature of his personality. Just point out that it is an out of sign conjunction. So we see Jupiter here, 22, well, that was messy, 22 degrees of Aquarius, and the sun there is 2 degrees Pisces. It's still a conjunction, but it's an out of sign conjunction, which, obviously if we're talking about a conjunction where it's really close, like say Jupiter was 22 and say the sun was like 24 or something of Aquarius, then that would be even more intense. But it's still a conjunction nevertheless, even if it is out of sign. I've noticed that with conjunctions, even when they are out of sign, they're still conjunctions and they still create a strong effect. So he's also got a third house stellium, which, look at all these placements here in the third house. So a stellium is 3 or more planets in one house. So we have Sun, Jupiter, Mars, and Venus all in the third house, and then we have the south node here and Chiron as well. I always look at Chiron. It's a very strong influence in a person's chart. So Chiron in the third house could indicate that maybe when he was younger at one time of his life, he might have even been a bit shy. He might have even struggled with expressing himself. Maybe he had some issues with, oftentimes when you see Chiron in the third house, there can be issues with confident speech, speaking up for yourself verbally, asserting yourself verbally, and sometimes there's learning difficulties. And I don't know if that's the case or was the case with him, but just as a general thing, if you have Chiron in the third house, you could be someone that struggled with, something like dyslexia or, learning delays, learning difficulties when you were younger. So he may have had something like that. But what we can see with Steve is that he was someone that, it's let's see what the Chiron touches in his chart. It conjuncts his Venus and conjuncts his Sun. So, that's quite strong in the sense that it would have meant that with the Chiron conjunct Venus and Sun, there was something painful for him in expressing his personality, and that might have been something that he dealt with when he was younger. Not really sure, but it does look like also, if you think about it, as he expressed his personality, there were people that opposed him, you know, and challenged his views to do with how he was so passionate about animals, and you know, sharing his knowledge about animals and how animals live, you know, how what makes them tick. He was very passionate about that. And passion is also related to fire energy, which, you know, the Jupiter conjunct Sun represents, and Mars in the third house, giving him a very busy mind as well, with Mars in Aquarius in the third house, a very curious and sort of ever seeking mind, and someone who maybe have trouble with their thoughts in terms of overactive mind, and a very restless nature, which we keep seeing here. Just on the third house influences, we have a lot of Pluto oppositions here. So you can see Pluto here opposes the Sun, it opposes the Venus. And so Pluto was opposing up here from the ninth house of philosophies, beliefs. And Pluto is a very powerful influence when it's making, you know, strong aspects to the smaller planets. You know, it can kind of create this feeling of being bullied by other energies, you know, with Pluto opposite here the Mars, not the Mars, the Sun and the Venus. So sorry, that was really messy. But yeah, basically that would have created some kind of struggles with beliefs around, you know, what he was doing. And there were people that were complaining that he was, you know, what he was doing with crocodiles, trying to research them, and, you know, the way they would capture them. And you know, in Steve's mind, he was seeing it as being very humane and trying to research and understand, you know, what their habitats like, you know, how they mate, you know, all these things to help keep track of, you know, I guess looking how people track animals in a way to sort of understand what their needs are or how they survive, and, you know, to understand, I guess, is what I'm getting at. And so with Pluto Uranus, there may have been people that strongly opposed his ways in what he was doing with his research and all that sort of thing. But it's interesting to note now, you know, looking at the moon here, if the moon in Virgo in the 10th house, so Virgo is associated with, you know, animals, and often people that have strong Virgo or sixth house love animals. Usually Virgo represents small animals, but Jupiter's here in the third house, so Jupiter is very strong with being conjunct his Sun, so Jupiter can be larger animals as well. And interestingly, in his sixth house, which can be the house of work, he has the part of fortune in Gemini. So communicating with others about what his findings are with regards to his passion in his work would have, you know, is indicated by the part of fortune as bringing success to his life. So that's interesting. Back to the Virgo moon. So Virgo moon in the 10th house shows a career dedicated to being of service in some way. And, you know, that was important to him, to be of service. So that's very clear with the Virgo moon popping up there in the 10th house. And you know what's an interesting little tidbit is that you'll often see that people with a moon in the 10th house, they can experience in life some kind of acclaim, some kind of fame as well. And for Steve, you know, I don't think that was something that he was really going after. It was more like a byproduct of his passion for what he was doing with his work. And sixth house energy, well, in this case it's in the 10th house, but Virgo rules the sixth house. Virgo in the 10th house represents wanting to be of service to people through information, sharing facts, and a passion that obviously in this case relates to animals. Again, Virgo can relate to animals. The moon is like, you know, your emotions, where you find security, and he did find a lot of security through his work. He did find a passion through his work. But yeah, as I was saying, the moon at the top of the chart, if you have the moon on your midheaven or at the top of your chart, it can indicate that you have to be very careful of your reputation, because whatever you do in the world, people will end up seeing it somehow. So, you know, that's what the case is often with celebrities, or like famous actors often have moon in the 10th house. Like many of them do have a moon in the 10th house, or a strong 10th house influence. I remember doing research on charts a while back and finding many actors with moon in the 10th house. So when you have moon in the 10th house, think about an actor that, you know, they often get chased by the paparazzi, and they get a lot of stuff put in the media about them, and people reading about their personal lives. So if you're, as I said, if you're someone that has moon either in the 10th house or conjunct midheaven, you do have to be aware that even if you're not famous, your hidden life or your private life can become more visible because of this placement. So that's what we see with the moon there. In the 10th house, but in his case, as I said, it's Virgo, so it relates to his work with animals very strongly there, wanting to be of service. And again, Virgo is information and sharing facts and data. So it's, you know, with Gemini, third house energy here, third house energy here, where he's got the stellium, and then the Virgo energy. There's a lot of Mercury here, and he was such a fast talker, so I see that as being, you know, clear here. Jupiter conjunct Sun, third house, communicative. Moon in Virgo, very fast brain again with all these placements, and especially the Mars in the third house. It shows a very active and fast brain, and a desire to share information and to give people knowledge, you know. Pluto also is conjunct the midheaven. Look at that. Exactly conjunct the midheaven. Wow. That's very intense to me. It's like Pluto is death, transformation. And obviously what happened to Steve was, you know, his passing was connected to his work. So Pluto conjunct the midheaven, that's an exact conjunction, both on 9 degrees, Pluto and the midheaven. Wow. So, you know, it's like his death was even very public in a way, because there was footage of, you know, him with the stingrays and all that, what happened, you know, which is really tragic and really sad, but that's what happened. And what else? I don't want to focus too much on that, more on his personality. So Mercury in Aquarius, and a lot of Aquarius placements here with Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Mercury here, all in Aquarius. Wow. So he was quite eccentric if you think about his personality, you know. He was quite unique, and there was really no one like him, and he has a lot of energy in Aquarius there. He really owned it with the second house Aquarius placements, you know, Saturn and Mercury conjunct as well. Shows someone that can be very very serious as well about what they're doing. Like, he took it very seriously. Obviously he was passionate about it. It was no joke to him. It was his passion, his life, and we see that with Saturn conjunct Mercury. What he thought about with regards to his passions was a very serious, you know, very serious thing for him. And he may have been prone to worrying, though, or being pessimistic at the same time. He may have at times struggled with negative thoughts, worrying thoughts with Mars conjunct Mercury and Saturn conjunct Mercury. He could have been with the Mars conjunct Mercury at times quite impatient, wanting to do things now, wanting to go, go, go. And he was very much like that. You know, you see it in his personality, the way he was. Venus in Pisces shows a very loving person, a very loving soul. Someone who, you know, Terry always said he was a beautiful husband. He was a wonderful husband. She couldn't ask for, you know, a better husband. And Venus in Pisces, you know, as well as the Pisces sun and the Virgo moon, you know, look at everything together as well. Very much someone who was quite dutiful and loving towards those he cared for. And let me see what else. On the 7th house, we see 0 degrees of Cancer. So yeah, very loyal to those he loved, I would say, based on that. But there could have been, with the 0 degree, that very early degree, whenever you see that, 0 degree Capricorn ascendant, very earthy as well with the ascendant in Capricorn. And the 0 degree, obviously, is going to be the same degree on the descendant point, can show crisis in relationships to others. And, you know, there was some issues there, and I don't know the full details or nature of it, but maybe leading up to his passing or after his passing, even with other people, to do with, you know, his legacy, or, you know, what he was doing with the wildlife sanctuary, I think it's called, that he had there with Terry. Some controversy around things like that. So the 0 degree Capricorn ascendant, well, Capricorn ascendant just in general, you know, he has that very earthy kind of disposition, and it is on the cusp of Sagittarius. So, you know, again, we see Sagittarius ruled by Jupiter, a bold and big personality, somebody that was very expressive, but yet very earthy with the Capricorn energy, someone who is very pragmatic and very hands-on, which you see with the practical moon in the 10th house, which is an earthy house, Capricorn house in Virgo, a Capricorn ascendant, and what else? And also all that 3rd house, which is a Gemini energy, shows someone who just had to get in there and had to get their hands involved, and, you know, very hands-on energy, very practical, and very, very much connected from the mind, the thinking, the ideas, and how to do things. Saturn conjunct Mercury can also be thinking up plans and strategies that are very physical orientated, very practical, pragmatic as well. So interesting, he had an interesting mix of, you know, a lot of air energy with the 3rd house, pragmatism with the moon in the 10th house in Virgo, very focused on his work, a 0-degree Capricorn ascendant, very earthy. And you think about, you know, the ascendant is the physical body, and his physical body was very Capricornian. It looked very solid and very earthy. You know, when you look at him, he wasn't someone that was all up in his head. He was very much in his physical body, you know, about, you know, in the physical reality, what you're dealing with, what's in front of you, you know, and that's very much Capricorn energy. It's like, what is real? You know, what are we dealing with that's real right now? So what else can I say about him? Jupiter, oh wow, Jupiter conjunct Sun and Mars, again, very strong Jupiterian influence. Saturn conjunct Mars, oh, interesting. So he has Saturn conjunct Mars in the air sign, okay, and that is from the 2nd house to the 3rd house, with Saturn conjunct Mars there. Okay, so I've got Saturn conjunct Mars in my chart, and it is an energy that can push you to extremes. It's like wanting to do everything now, wanting to get as much done as possible. You can risk burning your energy out, but he was obviously someone that was very energetic. So with Saturn conjunct Mars, you can just go until you're absolutely exhausted, and then it's like, oh, I'm not superhuman after all. I actually need a rest. So yeah, and that's probably what, you know, he was a very energetic person, as you can see by the way, if you've seen his interviews and know of him, obviously you remember that he was very energized all the time. And Saturn conjunct Mars is sometimes an energy of not knowing your limits and having to learn the hard way about learning what your boundaries and limits are in situations. So yeah, he would have experienced that definitely with his physical energy probably at times. And I'd say he had a lot of energy because of Pluto conjunct Midheaven, you know, so much energy for his passion, for his career. Virgo is like very restless energy. It can be, and wanting to be of service, wanting to do a lot, wanting to get a lot done, and not being happy until you've ticked all the boxes of, you know, I needed to do all these things today and I'm going to get them all done. That's very Virgo. And you can be very preoccupied with things to do when you've got a lot of Virgo energy. Saturn conjunct Mars made him very real in a way, very realistic, very real, very serious worker, a hard worker as well, absolutely. But he also knew how to enjoy his life with Jupiter influence, and you know, with the Pisces, he would have been very self-sacrificing in a way with his family, I would say. Let's see what else. Is there anything else I want to focus on here? What was his North Node? His North Node was in Leo in the 9th house. So wow. So okay, I'm just going to get rid of some of these other circles. Leo 9th house North Node shows that he was meant to take risks with the work that he was doing. He was also meant to be a teacher to others, and he obviously taught people about animals and what his passion was. So the 9th house is very much teaching and learning. So that's what I see there. Yeah, so, and the South Node would have been in the 3rd house, which shows a tendency to overthink, sometimes something to do with communication, or if he was, I think he really, with his North Node, he really fulfilled his mission on Earth because he was a teacher. He taught people about animals, and he expanded his reach with his work as far as he could take it, I think. Being known internationally as well. The 9th house is overseas contacts, and you know, that seems very clear to me that he definitely got to his North Node, which is the ideal for what you want to do, is to get to your North Node. Neptune, lastly, in the 11th house, Neptune in Scorpio. Interesting, something to do with dealing with the public there, and yeah, acclaim as well. The 11th house is gains. So Neptune there, it's like he may have been a little bit disillusioned at times with dealing with the public, or dealing with all of the responsibility, because I think Steve is also someone who would have been very idealistic as well about his vision. And maybe there was some issues that he had to deal with to do with his business or to do with money that were just a bit problematic, because we see Neptune does make a lot of squares in his chart. It does make a trine to his Venus. Venus is his, you know, his love life as well. So that was a positive. But the squares to Mercury, Mars, Jupiter and Saturn, he may have experienced some difficulties with dealing with other people to do with his work, and dealing with the public, because the 11th house is also dealing with the public. So is the 10th house, but the 11th house is people, groups, even friendships. There may have been issues in some friendships, or, you know, some things that were not accurate that were said about his friendships, or some kind of confusion to do with how he reached the public or how the public perceived him. I would say. But yeah, other than that, it's it's a chart of someone who really wanted to be of service, who was very passionate with Pluto conjunct midheaven. But the Pluto conjunct midheaven is also an energy where the person can experience extreme highs and lows in life and in the career. So that obviously was part of his experience as well. So I'm going to finish it off there, but someone requested this one, so that's why I thought I'd do it. And if you have any questions about the chart that I didn't cover, do let me know. Thanks so much, guys, and put any suggestions for other videos below this video. Thanks, guys. Bye.